Welcome to Life, Lafter Divorce, episode 51. I am your host, Leanne Linsky.
And I'm the boyfriend. And we're getting old.
We are.
Crossed the hump. 50. Wow, 51.
Yes. Coming up on 52, which would be an entire year.
1 year.
Yes. That's a big deal.
Would you have thought that a year ago we'd still be doing this?
Are you kidding me? No.
You didn't think I'd still be here a year
didn't.
ago.
No, I didn't. I would have been like, yeah, right. I would be, recording this on a phone or something. But you're here. We're here. We're still doing this, and our listeners are still here. In fact, there's more of you, a lot more of you than there were a year ago, which is tremendous. So
Thank you. We greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, because without you, it'd be just like screaming into the wind. So
and she does that, ladies and gentlemen. She does that.
I feel like I'm doing that most days. So yeah, welcome back to a wonderful week of divorce. We're excited to be here. While you're out there tuning in, as always, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. We love hearing from you. If you're out there in your car, don't do that. Keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel. I know boyfriend hates it when I give this PSA. We believe you're smarter than that, but I just want to throw it out there.
Sure.
What? I just want people to be safe.
Yeah, and
they get excited.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Be safe.
Be safe. Just be safe. Anyway, and if you're at your desk and you're safe, hey, check out the website, lifelafterdivorce.com. And if you want to send us a message, go type one on an email at info@lifelafterdivorce.com or find us on social media. And
what social media?
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
That's right. We're on all of them.
No, there's a lot more.
Yeah, we're not that cool.
Not that ambitious. What kind of time do you think we have? No, find us on there. If there's something you don't see us on and you want to see us, let us know. Hey, we're open to suggestions. Right?
Oh, yes, that's how we get better. So we're always open to suggestions.
Absolutely. The boyfriend, I think he should get Snapchat, personally.
No.
No?
No.
Oh, all right.
I guess that's a way to hide my face. Yeah, sort of.
But you could if you want little bunny ears and, weird rainbows coming out of your mouth and kind of stars around your head. All kinds of weird things. It does make your complexion look nice, though.
No, thank you.
I don't know what they do with the filters on Instagram, but if I could just have one of those permanently, life would be good. Life would be good. I don't know.
Okay.
People are never, when you meet people in person these days, they're never going to look like what their photos look like because it's so...
And they got dog noses in their photos now.
Right? I don't know. This kind of new things, guys, new things. The world is changing. The world is changing. Hey, you know what? A lot of people, as they go through divorce, they do go through a lot of change. And a lot of that after their healing and stuff, it's kind of like you go through this whole grieving process and then all of a sudden you're shiny and new again and life goes on, right? And it's like at that point where people often are like, what next? I want something new in my life, but I don't know.
What point is that in their lives? Is it in their post-divorce? You've already grieved, you've gotten through most of the lawyer stuff, the legal stuff. And then you're sitting there and you're like, okay, what do I do next?
What do I do next? Yeah. I mean, you've gone through the crisis mode. You're through the crisis mode and life is going on and, what next? Well, this is probably a great opportunity to explore the idea of life coaching or having a life coach. Life coach is not a therapist. A therapist is probably someone you would reach out to during your divorce or while you're still healing but
we've had a few life coaches on.
We have. We've had a few life coaches on. And life coaching, I think, is a terrific thing. Like people, I think oftentimes life coaching is confused with therapy, and it is not. It is not one and the same.
And the reason she knows this, ladies and gentlemen, is our wonderful host, Leanne, is also a life coach.
I am. I haven't really talked about it too much, but it is something that I do. And I love talking to other life coaches. And like the boyfriend has said, we've talked to several on the podcast. And today's guest is a life coach, and she's also a host of another podcast. And I just find it interesting to find other people's take on what they're doing with the life coaching, who they're reaching out to, what lives are changing. And
so
let's
take a step back, though.
Yeah.
I'm still curious because I'm not a life coach, and I've only watched you from the outside go through this process of becoming a life coach and seen the progress that the clients that you've worked with have the progress that they've experienced in their own lives. And so what does a life coach do, and how does that work? How do you go search one out, and are there specific life coaches out there?
There are different types of life coaches. Some people have a specialty that they focus on. Some people focus on wellness and nutrition. Other people focus on relationships. Some people are divorce coaches. Some people, career coaches. And so they kind of, not that they don't take on other clients, but some people have their specialty, Yeah. I just look at it, me personally, I look at it as life coaching. I mean, all areas are part of your life and they're affected by one another. But life coaching, when I look to take a client on, it's somebody who is not in crisis mode. Specifically, I can't coach somebody who's in crisis mode. Someone who's in crisis mode probably needs more specific help depending on their situation. Maybe a therapist, maybe a counselor, somebody in the divorce field, somebody in, relationship, depending on that particular experience. But in terms of my clients, I look for people who are involved in their everyday game of life, playing life at its fullest, but feeling like they need to get to a next level. It's kind of the equivalent, like if you're going to the gym and you're working out, but you don't feel like you're making any progress and you're like, how am I going to get it to the next level where I really start seeing some differences? You hire a trainer, right? Because that person isn't going to work. So a trainer doesn't do the workout for you. A trainer finds ways to get you to work out better, to get better results. They guide you, right? They don't do the work for you, but they can guide you to get the results that you're looking for.
Right.
And as a life coach, that's what I do with my clients, is I get them to play better and to become better athletes at the game of life.
And I've seen some of your clients, and it's amazing to see the progress and the accomplishment and the change in their own persona once they've gone through the life coaching process.
Right.
They become this is probably a bad way to put it, but bad way to put it, but they become a better person, a happier person. I know happiness is subjective, but they appear to be, what's the word I'm looking for?
They transform.
Okay, that's a good way. That's a great way to put it.
They transform, and as people go through a life coaching situation. And I mean, I have a coach, so from my experiences, I start.
And obviously, I don't, ladies and gentlemen. So,
so it would be unethical for me to coach you. There would be too many other weird things. But for me personally, I don't give advice to my clients. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to coach you just as a coach would and guide you in certain ways. So yeah, but it's wonderful to see people's transformation, and it's also incredible to be coached. I tell you, it is life-changing. It is absolutely life-changing to have a coach in my life during this past year has been quite remarkable. And while I'm in the process, I'm like, I just feel like so many things, and I feel overwhelmed at times, and so many things are happening. And then I looked back at the end of the year and I was like, oh my God, so many things have changed for me. And it's like,
and you attribute that to
having a life coach.
Yeah.
The things that at the beginning of last year that I actually ended up doing in this past year, I hadn't even considered in January.
That's a powerful statement, and it's a powerful statement for the effect of what a life coach can have on someone's life.
Yeah. It's very inspirational. It's very motivational. It's, if you find the right coach, and that's why I love talking to so many of our guests, because they have such different backgrounds, different experiences. And I think selecting a life coach is a very personal thing. It's like finding a primary care physician that you feel comfortable with, finding somebody that you trust, someone who gives you a sense of belonging that you can confide and share your goals and dreams with. Because if you're not comfortable with somebody, I mean, how...
But that other person has been trained to help you find the path and be able to take the steps to improve whatever aspect of your life that you're working on.
Exactly. Same with if you go and find a physical trainer, you're going to find somebody that you're like, that's somebody who I can look at and go, yeah, you get me. We connect. I feel comfortable with you. And that's the same with finding a life coach, is somebody that maybe you relate to, maybe you've had the same similar life experience, same background or same career, something along those lines, or just personality that just really clicks and things jive, and that's where you want to connect. So there's a lot of different life coaches. People have different methods and different, practices and techniques that they incorporate into their practice. And, but boy, I can vouch for it personally, and having a life coach, and then also having the training and doing life coaching.
So basically you're saying if you're in that spot in your life where you're ready to make the next step and you are, bad word again, probably feel stuck or stagnated.
You feel stuck or stagnated, and you're like, I know I can do better. I know I can take this to the next level. How do I get there? And you just need that push. So go find a life coach, find a life coach. And for me, a life coach is not an accountability partner. That's something else. If you want an accountability department, it's not a life coach. A life coach is someone, think if I look at it as if I want to live my life like a professional athlete, if I want to be an Olympian in my own personal life, whatever that is, I want a coach, because I'm not going to get to the Olympics without one.
That's a great way to state it. So everyone out there, if you are in this position in your life, go try it out. Find yourself a life coach. They could be very helpful. See if you can get a consultation and talk to people, And speaking of life coaches, I would like to introduce you to Katie Maggio, who is a mompreneur living in New England with her husband and 2 children. She's a podcaster like ourselves and host of the Level 10 lifestyle show, formerly titled Meaningful Moments, which you can find on iTunes. Creator of the Level 10 method. This method she actually created out of the ashes of her divorce. Her audience loves the Level 10 message because it's so simple to follow and so powerful when implemented in their everyday lives. So Katie helps people raise their game in the area of relationships, especially divorce, their careers, wellness, and finances, regardless of where they currently find themselves. So I really enjoyed talking to this week's guest, Katie Maggio. So without further ado, Katie, welcome to Life, Lafter Divorce Podcast.
Hi, Leanne.
Hello and welcome. It's so good to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I thought we would just jump in. And as an introduction, I let our listeners know that you are the host of the Level 10 Lifestyle Show. And you're also, you've got quite a few things going on. But just to give them a little bit of background, you are also a divorcee, and you are currently with your second husband and 2 children.
Yes, I am. I'm a mompreneur and a wife again.
Awesome. So how long have you been married the second time?
I just celebrated 3 years on December 6th. So just celebrated.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The first 2 years are usually the toughest.
That's what they say.
And I wouldn't have much to compare it to because I never made it past 2 years. So,
well, I the first time it was 4.5 years. I couldn't make it to 5, so we'll see where it goes.
Well, you're on your way with a good 3 years under your belt. So congratulations.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
So I'm excited to hear about, you do life coaching and you have the Level 10 method.
Yes.
And I'm really curious to know what the level 10 method is all about.
So it all actually, funny enough, came out of fruition because of the fact that I got divorced. So when I went through my divorce 10 years ago, you go through kind of, a space in life, and, it seems like, the pits of despair, and, everything is terrible at that time. And you just, you can't see the light at that point. So I eventually looked at myself and I said, what do I need to change? Because you can't change anybody else. You just can't. It's impossible. But you know who you can change? Yourself. Mm-hmm. So I looked at myself and I said, how can I better myself? How can I be a better person personally? How can I go on my journey? And then everybody's always come to me and like, I've always had this vision or this unbiased position to help people. And some people don't like it. And I'm like, well, then don't ask me, because I'm going to tell you not what I think, but just I can decipher through the scenario and give you, pretty sound advice. So that happened. And so I was getting my friend through her second divorce. And, through her tears one day, everything had gone through, and she looked at me and she said, I just hope someday I could be a level 10 like you. And that was it. And a light bulb went off in my head. And I knew at that point, I wanted to just help people. I wanted to be a life coach. I wanted to decipher people through their journey, get them unstuck. And the people I work with are the people who want to work. They want to be helped, because I'm not their therapist. I'm nobody's therapist. If you want to come to me with that victim mentality and complaining about everybody else, and you don't want to put the work in, that's not for us to be working with. I'm working through the people who are stuck in life. They may or may not be going through a hard time. They just can't navigate through the journey, and they can't visualize and see. So I have 10 steps that we go through. We touch on all the aspects: business, relationships, paying it forward, fun, recreation, just every aspect of your life. And we write it down, and we literally go through just the pain, gut-wrenching truth. Because most people in life completely lie to themselves. They look at something and they lie about it to themselves. And they're not lying to others. They're like, what? And they could be lying to others, but they don't need to be, because they can't see it for what it is. So that's what we do. So for the first 30 days, we go through the initial level 10 method. So if you want to check that out, you just go to level10method.com. It's level number 10 method. And there's an initial self-diagnostic, actually. And, it comes up, and you can rate yourself 1 to 10 on the different questions. And then it goes on, and, you can get an opportunity to work with me. And it's so amazing to see when you take a person and you go through all the different areas of their life. I don't know. It's that just aha moment for everybody. And it's just so rewarding. And I just love it. So that's it in a nutshell, really.
So that is really cool. So that's the level 10. And that's something that you developed on your own.
I did. It came out of, I think there are other things out there that, people, obviously I didn't invent the terminology level 10 life, but I invented the level 10 method. Yes.
Right. And so when you went through your own divorce, did you have a life coach or anybody that you worked with?
Not at the time. No, I didn't get my life coach until about a year ago. And then before that, I had a mentor. But it wasn't truly until I got my life coach that I really, I was stuck. I had the aha moment. I had my friend saying, I want to be a level 10 like you. I knew what I wanted. I just didn't know how to get there. I couldn't decipher how to get down that road to figure out where to go. I was stuck. And that's what I love to do now. I love to get people unstuck.
Yeah.
You have that idea. You have that passion. You're like, I know what I want.
Right.
You don't know, like, well, how do I get there? Well, now what do I do?
Right. Because when we get a life coach, again, I think you made a good point when we were talking earlier. A life coach is not a therapist, and we don't take somebody who's in crisis mode. We take somebody who's feeling stuck and they know they want to play their life at a higher level. How do they do that?
Right. Taking somebody who wants to play big.
Yeah.
Who no longer wants to play small in their lives. But no, that that is one thing that I learned actually the hard way. Sometimes when you're starting this journey and you really want to help everybody, you get sucked into that. And that happened once. And I was like, no, never again. I was like, I'm not your therapist.
Yeah, it's a much different space to be in. And I know, so you've gone through your divorce. How long was it after you started getting your own life coach about a year or so ago. And before that you had a mentor. What did you do during the time, like right after your divorce? Where did you find your support?
I didn't. I did what everybody should not do. And I hid. I went into like hiding. I was ashamed. I was upset. I was sad. Every aspect, I went through all the different stages, and I made that mistake and I pushed people away. That was how I dealt with it. And looking back on it now, I don't know why I did that, but we all handle it at that time differently. So I didn't really have the guidance that I should have at that time. So I didn't allow it.
Yeah. And what were you doing during that time? Did you end up, you isolated yourself in support, but did you date? Because a lot of people do go through that phase.
Yeah, I did. I dated quite a bit, but it was just I was just dating around. Like I just wanted to find something to keep myself preoccupied, to kind of get over what had just happened.
Yeah.
And then about 3 years later, I met my husband that I'm with now, and that was good. But if I had met him right after, it would never have worked out. I'm not in a place to be with anybody really, to be with somebody serious.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when did you start reaching out again? And what did that look like?
Well, I think what I actually did too is I threw myself into my career. And that's how I really got my career ramped up, because I work for corporate America as well. And, I life coaches as well. And that I just literally, that was it. I threw myself into my career. I traveled a ton. I would take every opportunity, any job that they needed done, any place they needed to send somebody. I was always raising my hand. So I just needed a distraction. I needed something to distract me. And out of that, out of disaster comes opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
So from there, I learned so many different things about myself and skills, and just in the workplace. And I grew my business. I launched my career, and that was kind of a blessing in disguise. Because honestly, if I had still been married, I would never have worked as hard as I did. So I worked exceptionally hard because I was grieving.
Right. Yeah. You're trying to find safety in the things that we know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I knew that was all that was left.
And so you ended up finding your next husband and launching a career of your own. And looking back on your divorce experience, because I know we haven't talked about it in depth or anything, but like looking back at your journey afterward, because I think, in talking to you, that's kind of where your light is what you found afterward, and a way to go back and help others. What was it about life coaching that spoke to you?
So that's a great question. I talk about divorce because that's part of my life. I can't get around it. It's not, you when you were in a general conversation with people or whatever, it comes up, but I never make that a defining aspect of who I am. Sometimes people will say, well, why don't you talk about that more? It's your story. It's a better story. It'll make you, it'll give somebody, your backstory. I don't generally do that. I don't like to do that. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of it, because that's not who defines me. Now is what defines me, because again, out of disaster came opportunity. You find a way to rise above tragedy. And I did. And now I pride myself on coaching people how to stay away from obstacles like that. Not so much not getting, going through a divorce, even though, side note real quick, I did want to be, how it originally got started real quick, is I wanted to become a divorce coach. That's how it started. I wanted to really, and at that point I was still, I don't want to say angry, but I was still like, nope, I'm never going to let anybody make these mistakes. I was so like up on my soapbox, like, I'm going to help everybody in the world not go through the same divorce mistakes I made. And then once I did so much self-discovery with my own self, I was like, whoa. This is coming from still a bad, bitter, angry place. And then it just manifested itself into something wonderful once I did self-discovery on myself. And now when I go through the 10 steps with my clients and we get to relationships, we really dig into what is the problem within a marriage, within a relationship. And sometimes it's just stubbornness, egos, different things that, jealousy, things that can be fixed. It's just, you need to be aware and just have that paradigm shift. So I go about it in a very positive place now. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
Did that answer the question? Sorry.
No, it does. It does. And I understand what you're saying. So when you're coaching people, are you coaching mostly people who have gone through divorce or a major breakup?
Not always, no. But what I do find is that a lot of people are just not happy with their relationships because of unrealistic expectations. We talk a lot about expectations, and sometimes expectations are just truly unrealistic when it comes to relationships. And once they, and I hear that a lot. Well, if he would change or if she would change. No, you're not going to change anybody, but you can change yourself, and we can look at this and navigate how you're feeling. And once we do that, it's like, it just changes the game. It changes the game for people. And they will come to me like, thank you so much. I do have a woman who we just finished, actually 6 months together. And that was one of her things. She said, I didn't really ever want to admit this, but I wanted to, I was unhappy with him and I wanted to file for divorce. She's like, but really I was just unhappy with myself. That because, just what the situation was. And so now she's happier in her marriage.
Nice. What a nice result of that.
Yeah. And I think too is that we have all these different filters in our lives. Everybody on social media posts the perfect pictures. You watch the Hallmark movies and, cowboys come in on horses and scoop you up, or you fall in love with a ghost. Like, there's so many unrealistic things out there for people to see that is not real. And then, it's like, well, how come the Joneses have the perfect marriage? Well, I will promise you, the Joneses do not have a perfect marriage. But guess what? The Joneses are going to put it on their Instagram or on their Facebook page, just how perfect they want you to think they are.
So true. And we're trying to live up to unrealistic ideas, things that don't necessarily exist. And I think that's the thing about, we forget Facebook is a marketing tool, if nothing else. It's our own way of branding ourselves. It's our own way of telling the world what we want them to know.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like that ongoing first date.
Right. It's wonderful forever.
Right. And that's the other thing with coaching is you have to get dirty. Like you really have to dig in.
Yeah. You have to dig.
It's not a on the surface kind of work. Life coaching is, when having a life coach is a life-changing experience.
It is. And it's investing in yourself. Obviously people pay for life coaches, but it's an investment for yourself to become a better person. And that sometimes often comes up as an obstacle. People say, well, I don't have the money to do it, or I don't want to spend it because I could be putting the money in X, Y, and Z. But if you're not growing for you, how can you be good for your children? How can you be good for your spouse? How can you be good for your career? How can you be good for anything if you're not good for you?
Yeah.
You're investing in your own self. It's the best thing I ever did. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. It's the same as getting a personal trainer. You want some results. You want to work out harder. Most likely going to need a trainer.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm one of those too.
So tell me a little bit about, you have your new marriage, you have your life coaching business, and, what would you say your number one lesson that you learned from your first marriage that you kind of has provided a new guideline for you in your new life?
Well, I think that is a great question. So 2 things. I'm obviously older now and I have more life experience and more perspective. I think a lot of times when people are in their 20s and they get married, they're still growing. They're growing themselves and the person that they're married with or engaged to or who's going to be their life partner eventually, they're growing. If I had just stuck with it and realized, and I'm sorry, not stuck with it, like it's the way it is and I would never change it. But I think a lot of times people give up too easy with things in life. And I've taken that lesson and applied it to all areas of my life. If something's getting hard, don't give up easy. Give it more time, give it some chances. And again, it's applicable to any part of your life, not just marriages or relationships.
Mm-hmm. And how would, of course, in what situations, like, can you give an example of something that you think you find with a lot of people where they feel like giving up, and it would be an example of taking some time for self-reflection?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. So just coming into a crossroads where you want to have an ego, you want to hold a grudge. Your way is the right way, your way or the highway type of thing. To not have that mentality and realize that everybody's different. Everybody has a different way of thinking. Everybody has a different way of doing things. And to be more sympathetic and passionate to other styles of learning and other styles of just being human beings. We all have to be, especially like in the quote unquote honeymoon phases of relationships, everything's, beautiful. And then all of a sudden one day you're like, oh, well, what the heck? I thought you were this way. Well, that person didn't want to fart in front of you, but now they are like, and you're like, what the heck? Where'd that come from? Well, no, it's just because people start to evolve within relationships and you either evolve with it or you don't. And, and if you don't want to be adaptive to the other person's personality and point of view, then, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, in what ways do you find yourself, what ways have you changed that you see in your new relationship?
Well, I'm definitely more, I used to be so combative. I'm not like that anymore. I'm not, back in the day, I would be extremely combative, but there was no reason for it because I wanted to be right. I wanted the last word. I wanted to, I wanted the bed and you had the couch. Like, no, like why do we have to have that combat role? We're supposed to be partners. We're supposed to be best friends. And now I really take that and, and I don't buy into annoyances ananymore. Or if somebody's trying to rile me up, I'm not going to buy into that. Like, okay, you're trying, but I take a couple deep breaths and we move on. I'm not gonna buy into it anymore. I've become better than that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let myself get riled up because the only person it's hurting is me.
Right.
So if they want to get a rise out of me, well, go for it. But I'm not. Nope.
So are your 2 children that you have now, they're from your first marriage?
Correct. Yes.
And what is a change that you've noticed with your kids?
Well, they were so little when we got divorced. So they don't really even remember us being together. And it's so funny because just recently I actually asked my oldest about it because one of her friends' parents are just going through a divorce. And I said to them, it was right before Christmas, so very recently. And I'd never asked him this question before, which is kind of interesting. And I said, do you guys mind being from a divorced family? And my little one, she quips up. She's like, no, we just get more gifts. And I thought it's interesting. She has absolutely no memory of us being together. And I just laughed. And so my oldest said, no, I don't mind it. She goes, sometimes it's hard going back and forth between houses, just because sometimes if I have something at one house, that I want, or, what that was the only statement, which I can completely understand. But she said that she likes being from a divorced family because she can help her friends that are going through it now as middle schoolers. And it must be so hard for them to be going through it now. And I thought that was so wise coming from a 13-year-old. I really did.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that is wise. So the kids have never really had any change. The only change that they really had was, it was just me and them when it was just me and them for, years after we got divorced. So when I met my husband, that we had a little obstacle. It was kind of like he was taking me away from them a little bit, but we've overcome that now because it's been, almost 7 years.
Right. What were some of the ways that you learned that they could overcome it? Were there like some techniques of life coaching that you could apply, or did you find that it just kind of naturally happened over time?
Well, my biggest thing is you never talk bad about the other person. You always take the high road because it's not the children's fault. So anytime you have any type of bad feelings or you want to say something nasty, just don't, because it's not fair for children to paint their parent in a bad light, to paint them in the way that you see them, because that's not how they see them. That's their dad. That's their mom. Never, in the minute you plant that seed, it almost will give a negative light on the person planting it. You can't unring a bell. You can't. And once that's out there in the universe, it's out there and you can't take it back. Because, years later, as bad as the divorce might be when it's happening, years later, hopefully you're going to have a relationship with that person. And you always have to remember that that person is going to be connected with you forever through your children. So why make it more miserable than it needs to be? And certainly don't bring the children into it, because that's just not fair.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I love just taking the high road, which is so hard to do sometimes.
So hard to do. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. And then as you transition though with your new husband and he came into the picture, I mean, this was somebody new for them.
Yes.
And did that seem easy?
Well, I thought it was going to be easier than it was, to be quite honest. It wasn't easy in the beginning at all. We did it very, very slowly. And then I think about a year after we were together, we all moved to a house together. And that was, we made that as fun as possible. And then just after we got married, it was that's just the way it was. We were just all together, and you just have another person that loves you, and he knows his role. He's not my girl's dad, but he's a fantastic stepdad, and he's there for them when he needs them. And, he does whatever he can for them. If I can't, I can't pick them up from something, or, I drop one off and pick one up, whatever scenario, he'll do anything for them. But he knows his role. He knows his boundaries, and he's never going to overstep my role, because I know that that's a lot of problems that come with second marriages or marriages that come with children, is that it often falters because the new spouse is trying to, assert their dominance. And I set that precedence from day one. Like, you're not their dad. You're their stepdad and their friend and their mentor, and that's it. If there's going to be a disciplinary action, it's going to be between myself and their father.
How did that conversation go? How do you handle something like that?
Well, it went very well. My husband doesn't have any, biological children of his own, and we don't have any together, and nor did we want to ever. I was actually looking for somebody else who who one didn't have children of their own and one who didn't want further children, because I didn't want any more children. And that was a conversation that I think he felt relieved, especially in the beginning, before we even moved in, really even before he met them. So I think he was a little like, oh, what do I do? And I set that precedence day one. You can have as much, you can do as much or as little as you want, but just know that, you're not going to have to be the one to discipline or, obviously if they're being, horrible, then, we have to have that conversation, but they're not. My girls are excellent. So yeah, right. That's kind of how that went.
Right. So that sounds like it wasn't terrible. And that's a good thing. And that you kind of had some ideas already in place of what you wanted. And that really helps too. Is,
transparency is key.
Yeah. Huge. So that is pretty tremendous. So then as you go into your life coaching and everything, how helpful is your own life experience?
Oh, I'm a practitioner of what I preach. I do every single thing within my level 10 method that I offer for my clients. I try to be the most well-rounded person I can for myself. Because if I'm not a healthy, happy person, well, then how can I, put that on anybody else? And I'll tell you what, every day is not, perfect. A level 10 is a way of thinking. But do I feel like a level 10 every day? Oh my gosh, absolutely not. Oh my God. Some days I'm like, am I 2 today? Like what's happening? what's going on? I think I'm at a 3 now. But no, it's definitely, absolutely 100% having that self-discovery and going through trials and tribulations and coming out on the other side just with just a paradigm shift and changing yourself. Because you can't do anybody else.
No, you can't. You really, really can't. Well, what kind of plans do you have going forward? Where do you, how do you see, I guess, before we talk about your business, but what are your plans going forward with your relationship? Like, what are your hopes and outcomes?
My relationship with my husband?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the one area of my life that I would always love to continue to improve on is that area. I always want to become a better spouse because I feel as though I see this with my clients. When there's a disruption within the two parties, that can throw the whole entire thing off course. Because, if you're in a fight with somebody or you're having a disagreement or you have two different mindsets on something, it can send everything out of whack. So I really want to constantly be honing in on how to make that better and to be more compassionate. Because when you're out of sync with that, it's hurting everything else.
Mm-hmm. Like a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Communication is one of the biggest things we end up talking about on the podcast most of the time. Is it comes down to, wow, we really need to be better communicators. And it's so true. It seems so simple, doesn't it?
It does seem so simple. Yeah, because exactly. If you don't communicate, or I love this quote. Well, he knew what I meant, or he should have known, or she should have. Well, we're not mind readers,
right? Exactly.
And that I always stop those phrases dead in their tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have to remind myself on those things too. So.
Yes. I think the boyfriend and I, one of our recent conversations was fine is a red flag. Anytime anyone says the word fine, that is not a good sign. I'm fine. That's fine. You look fine. Fine is not desirable.
No. There's all kinds of acronyms for it.
Yeah, right. What is a big red flag for you to know that you're out of balance?
Well, we're both entrepreneurs, and sometimes we kind of stick our 2 cents in with our businesses, and sometimes we're not willing to be open about the suggestion. And I've literally, that's what I've been working on, kind of just stop, drop and roll, like just stop, listen, take what they have to say. Okay, all right, well, and then even if it's not the way I want to proceed or the way he wants to proceed, at least take something from it. And from even a suggestion or an idea or a comment can breed something extremely positive, or it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that, or, so just kind of being more open to each other's knowledge and ideas and business sense.
I have to laugh and not at you, but because I'm sitting here smiling as I'm listening to you talk about this particular topic, because this has come up too. And I think that is so key. And I think a lot of couples, and not just like the boyfriend and I, or you and your husband, but when we sit and we talk about what our plans are for a business or something, especially, I'm sure other people can relate, but what is it that we feel we have to defend our idea or our thing? I think it takes good practice to step back and be able to take constructive criticism.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I don't know what it is. And sometimes I think it's just to do with like a mood. Like, have you ever found this? Like, you're working on something so hard, and so, you've got this idea and you're going through it, and then all of a sudden somebody's like, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, what do you mean?
You're like, I've been working on this all day, and you just come in here and just slash it all down. Like, yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And usually I'm just laughing because I know the boyfriend is laughing right now as he's listening. But it is one of those key touchy areas in relationships when you're pursuing something that you're passionate about, something, whether it's a creative endeavor, even like in the arts. And I know when I was performing and dating other people and, who are doing comedy or actors or whatnot, boy, if I, one of the things is like, I never want to take direction from anybody other than my director, because it gets so confusing. But it's the same thing in being in small business or things like that, because it's a whole different personalized way to express ourselves.
Absolutely. Yep.
And it's interesting too, because talking to a lot of people like ourselves, where they become entrepreneurs after something as personal as a divorce, and basing the business upon that, it even takes on more weight.
Yes, absolutely.
You know?
100%. And you become more sensitive for some reason.
Right, because it's like, this is mine. You don't know. I know. I went through this. And I think it's a great opportunity to practice, because whether it's your business, whether it's a performance, whether it's your music or whatever anybody else has that's personal onto them, any relationship we have to be okay with opening up and understanding that someone's not attacking us, but they're trying to help us.
Exactly. And you just take little things, and if you don't want to take it all, listen, and okay, yep, and thank them. Thank you for that.
Right.
Thank you. Take what you want out of it. But again, that you hit it on the head. It's a learned behavior. That's I don't think that's anything. We're programmed fight, flight, or freeze.
Yes. It's so funny. I think my new thing from this conversation is gonna, so boyfriend, prepare yourself, because when you say something, and even if I don't like it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Big. He's your Mr. Big.
No. So what other goodness do you have for our listeners on divorce, and when they're ready to get unstuck?
Well, if you're feeling like you're going to go through a divorce, definitely take a step. I mean, and we're talking about, so there are things that come along with divorce sometimes that, you just cannot overcome. Being left by somebody, somebody who leaves you to be with somebody else, certain forms of, infidelity, whatever. There's different things, but there are so many day-to-day things that are happening, and so many people give up for so many reasons so easy, because they just again, like we talked about, they always want to be right. They want to have the ego that, or just whatever. Just stop, put it into perspective. And if, remember, you loved this person once with all your heart, and maybe it's not as bad as you think. You're going through a problem. Maybe you just need to decipher it and really pick it apart. Hire a life coach, because a lot of times people are just not happy with themselves. And again, not to get into, I'm not a marriage counselor, but again, like the person I was talking about that we just, finished our 6-month residency together, she was just so unhappy with herself because of her miscommunications. And, she thought this about her husband. She thought her husband didn't want her to do this. And I always be like, well, have you ever asked him that? There's so many notions that we have in our own head that prevent us from sometimes having a happy marriage, from having a happy relationship. And once you get past that, you're like, oh, well, I'm changing myself. I'm not trying to change them. Yeah, so stop trying to change other people. Stop. I guess that's exactly where I was going with that, with the wicked long answer. But
that's right. Change yourself.
Change yourself. Stop trying to change other people. And what people say all the time, like, I wish you would just change. Change what? Like, that he's not, nobody, no, that's not realistic.
Right. That is so true. So true.
That's definitely something that I feel needs to be said.
Awesome. Well, I like it. And I think it is certainly key. And a lot of us need reminding of that on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been awesome. I am so glad that you came on as a guest, and love talking to you and learning about your level 10 method. And I think it's really a great place to be. And I'm happy to see that you're well on your way to a happy and long-lasting relationship. Definitely.
I'm going to hang up and go, in the other room and give him a big hug and say thanks. But it was funny earlier when we were starting, it just coming in and he was like rustling around the refrigerator. I'm looking, I'm like, really? You see what I'm doing? But he's like, oh, shoot.
You forgot. They forget sometimes.
It's okay.
Well,
I'm just going to start calling him that. Just, hi, husband.
That's right. Like the boyfriend. He loves it. He loves being a man of mystery. They like a little bit of that. But this has been great. Make sure you thank the husband for me.
Oh, I will.
And I look forward to hearing more about Level 10, and all of your contact information is going to be in the show notes where we keep all of that good stuff, and our listeners know to go there, and they know to check you out on the Level 10, the Level 10 podcast, the lifestyle show, formerly titled Meaningful Moments. So yes. I'll be sure to include all of that, and hopefully if people are needing to be unstuck, they can reach out to you, Katie, and we will be talking to you again soon, I hope.
Well, I appreciate everything, Leanne. You are such a doll. You literally have a light. I love it.
Thank you so much.